So my name is Michelle Higginson. I'm a businesswoman in Johannesburg, and this is the story of how I came to be the custodian of some white lions. I'm an African child. My parents were from East Africa, and I grew up being in the bush and loving wild and free animals. So when about 15 years ago the canned lion industry was exposed, it was something that really struck a chord inside me, and I wanted to try and make a difference. So I decided to visit one of the breeding facilities in the Free State, and what I found was more vile than anything you could ever imagine. The people who own these places take the cubs away from their mothers at a very young, within hours of their being born. They were being taken away, left to roam. And when I stayed there, this one little lioness who had a collar around her neck like a little dog came into my room and actually slept on my bed, looking for some form of comfort, I suppose, and that was it. I just decided then and there that I had to at least help some of these creatures to get some kind of life. So I went home the next day and I had to contact the owner and start some form of negotiations.
When Michelle spoke to me about the project in the early days, you know, there was only one choice I had, and that was to get involved in the project, because we couldn't carry on seeing these animals in their current state. So you know, I was on board right from the beginning. To be able to remove them from that and bring them to an environment where they can just kind of live their life as lions, that was really attractive to me.
And at that stage, even though the agreement had been made, we really weren't sure where we were going to house and put these creatures. At the same time, some friends of mine had moved to the Karoo, to a reserve owned by Princess Irene of Holland.
Initially, Michelle was going to take the lions to a property up in the Kalahari, and that didn't pan out. So I suggested to Cindy that we ask Princess Irene, and she gave it some thought, and we walked around a bit, and Princess Irene gave the go-ahead to the project. And yeah, the animals have been here ever since.
We had to get permits to move these lions, we had to get permits to house these lions, and we had to build the enclosures. So we had a feasibility study done, and we found a place that, for example, would have a variety of, you know, foliage and rocks, a place where they wouldn't be gawked at, a place that was protected, and that was a huge part of the project. You know, it's not a mean feat to build enclosures. So besides finding a place for these lions to stay, I mean, everything was a learning curve for me. We found the most wonderful vet, and he has helped me with these lions from the outset. And of course, my very dear friends Cindy and Wayne, who actually look after these lions on an ongoing basis.
So on a regular basis, we are obviously monitoring their physical condition as well as feeding. So those are obviously the two majors. But there's also a lot sort of behind the scenes activities, which include maintenance of the enclosures themselves. That can be anything from water supply to faults on the electrical fence to a baboon that's been trapped in one of the enclosures.
The one lion was pregnant again, so by the time we were bringing her here, she had 2 cubs. The first that she'd ever got to keep. So it was just incredible to watch. When we released the mother with her 2 babies, they just dashed off into the enclosure, and they were tiny. They were like this, and they were just, this is their home. I mean, they've never been really anywhere else. So they were wild from the beginning almost. And she was just beyond appreciative. So she came right to the fence, and she sort of grunted her appreciation to us for a good half an hour. The one cub that had slept on my bed, when we released her, she was sort of like amazed at sloth and grass. You could just see that this was all new to her. So it was a whole new world, and it was huge, and it was fresh air, and it was, you could just say straight away those lions were happy. Straight away, they knew this was a new world for them and a new home and a new life.
We are obliged by keeping them in captivity to make sure that their health is optimum. That involves a hands-on examination at least once a year. So each animal is immobilized so that we can physically examine each cat. Some of the other more routine stuff we would do is just an annual vaccination as well. So we use the normal feline vaccinations together with a rabies vaccine. We deworm them both for internal and external parasites as well. Keeping on top of dental issues and an eye examination is just as important as well. It is the one time in the year where we do actively handle these animals, and it's all with good reason. Getting the nutrition right and sourcing a good supply of meat has been vital, and I think that has been addressed very well.
The animals eat Nguni beef, and we have a supplier just outside of Kraaifontein. So the beef that we feed them is essentially free range, no hormones or additives. Some of our biggest challenges in looking after the animals is situations that are out of your control, something like a runaway fire. The snow as well, you know, we can get down to -15 degrees, and a couple of times when we haven't been able to get to the enclosures with a vehicle, walking through thick snow with a sack of meat on my back to go and give them their food. And they often, even if it's snowing, line up in the snow. And when the two young cubs came, they were 3 months old when they first came. And literally they looked like little polar bears running around playing in the snow. You know, they looked naturally at home in the snow.
It might not be ideal because they're still enclosed, but they have quite a lot of interesting days, I think. I mean, there's a lot of wild life around them, and you can see that they kind of are curious, and they kind of communicate with them, and you know, they check out their enclosures every day, and they play with each other, and they sit up on their rocks and survey their surroundings, and they roar, and they don't like humans looking at them, and they're left much to their own devices. So they're very, very peaceful and left to their own world and to their own lives, and that's really what I was trying to achieve.
It's seldom that you get to work on captive lions where the intention is that the lions can live as natural life as possible. One doesn't want to see any lions in captivity, but the reality is that there have in the past always been lions bred in captivity, and those lions in reality can't be released back into the wild. And so it becomes someone's responsibility to take care of them. And it's been a real pleasure to be involved here, knowing that the intention has always been for the best welfare of these lions and not for anyone else's benefit whatsoever.
I would say there's, you know, special moments which come to mind, and definitely one of those would be the lion sitting on a dollarite koppie with a full moon rising behind them. You know, those are the special moments that I'll never forget. You know, the sound of them roaring as well. You know, I don't know when lions were last heard roaring in this area of the Karoo, but it's a beautiful sound, and even now as I'm talking about it, I get goosebumps.
So I wasn't able to save every single lion that I would like to have saved, but I gave 8 lions a much better life. If I look back to where this all started and the way I saw these lions, where they were, compared to where they have been for the last 12 years, I would say I've achieved kind of what I wanted to achieve, which was to give them a better life. Nothing further. I've improved their lives, and we've all improved their lives, and that's really what this project was about.